Hello and welcome to English for You. I'm Seb.
And I'm Mike.
And we are talking about probably a sport that you guys might not do at the moment in school. We're talking about boxing.
Yeah, not the most popular sport in Taiwan.
No,
people are into
it's
the
not.
sort of fighting sports. Taekwondo is a sport that Taiwanese athletes have had great success in, but boxing has been a popular sport a lot longer than Taekwondo all around the world. And when you talk about boxing, there's really one name that you have to mention, and that is Muhammad Ali.
Of course, you don't need to be a fan of the sport to recognize this person.
Absolutely. I think he was voted greatest athlete of the 20th century a few years ago when they picked them. He was up there with Michael Jordan and Pelé, the great Brazilian soccer star. But Muhammad Ali, I think, came out on top. So a champion there, but of course most well known as a champion in the boxing ring.
But also because he did a lot of different things throughout his career. He was a very influential person. And today we're going to be looking at his life, not just as a boxer, but as an activist. Okay, let's get started with day one of our article.
Reading.
The Greatest. The Story of Muhammad Ali. The words float like a butterfly, sting like a bee bring one name to mind, Muhammad Ali. This man gave boxing some of its best moments. However, Ali's life story shows he was much more than just a boxer. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Clay Jr. in 1942. When he was 12, his bike was stolen. Clay angrily told police officer Joe Martin that he wanted to beat up the thief. Martin guided Clay to take up boxing and started training him. After just 6 years, Clay had already won several boxing titles. He went on to win a gold medal in the 1960 Olympics. Clay became known for his speed in the ring and for boasting before matches. Before an important fight against boxing champion Sonny Liston, Clay teased him by saying he'd knock him out. Clay won the match and famously shouted, "I am the greatest!" He made the news again the next morning by announcing that he'd converted to Islam. He was renamed as Muhammad Ali.
All right, so our article is titled The Greatest, the Story of Muhammad Ali. And yes, the greatest is one of those nicknames that he might be known by. And here's another famous quote, another famous group of words that are associated with Muhammad Ali very closely. It says the words float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Bring one name to mind, Muhammad Ali. Hey, it even rhymes.
It
Float
does.
like a butterfly, sting like a bee, brings to mind Muhammad Ali. And yes, that was a quote. I think that he said it. I'm not sure if it was in a newspaper or if he said it himself. He was famous for coming up with great lines, great words, great sentences. Some people call him the first rapper, in fact, because he would come up with these great lines, and newspaper writers loved them because they'd write it down, and it was very, he was very quotable, as we would say. And yeah, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. That's how he described himself, or was described. To float, this verb basically means to kind of hover, to hang in the air, the way a balloon might float, the way a cloud might float in the sky. A butterfly, of course, sort of floats, right? It doesn't fly as much as a bird does, moving quickly in one direction. It kind of just hangs there in the air. Maybe like a hummingbird, you might also say float. And of course, we also use this for things that are sitting on the surface of the water. A duck will float on the water. A boat, hopefully, will float on the water.
Otherwise, it will sink.
Otherwise, it has a serious problem, yes. But it's supposed to float on the water. Just kind of sit there resting, kind of hanging in the air, or sitting quietly on the surface of the water. For example, we could say, we lay on the grass watching the clouds float by. So this was Muhammad Ali describing himself. His feet were so quick he would kind of move effortlessly like a butterfly around the boxing ring, but unlike a butterfly, he was powerful and possibly painful like a bee. So he could move very gracefully like a butterfly, but punch you very hard like a bee might.
Yes, stings certainly hurt, don't they?
And it says, this man gave boxing some of its best moments. Yeah, absolutely. If we're talking about Muhammad Ali, we're talking about the sport of boxing. What is boxing? It's one of the fighting sports. It's a sport where two contestants, two fighters, we would probably call them, punch each other. They hit each other with their hands inside large padded gloves. So they don't kick. You don't use your elbows or any other part of your body except your hands. They stand a few feet apart from each other and punch with their fists at the body and the head. And very few people, in fact, probably no one was better at it than Muhammad Ali. As it says, this man gave boxing some of its best moments. The sport is boxing. If you do it, you box, all right? And if you are a person who boxes in the sport of boxing.
In the boxing ring.
You're a boxer, right? But sometimes they also call them fighters, right? The fighters have entered the ring. The boxers have entered the ring. They're about to start boxing.
And I suppose we could call boxing a type of martial art, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think so. Like karate or kung fu or something.
Exactly, all of those fighting sports. Yeah. However, Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer. That's what we get from our next sentence. However, Ali's life story shows he was much more than just a boxer. Okay, someone's life story is the story of everything that happens in their life, from when they were born to when they died. Okay, so we're going to be looking at everything that happened to Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely.
So, how did his story begin?
Well, interestingly, it began under a different name. This is part of his life story. One of the big changes in his life was that when he was already a well-known fighter, he changed his name. So let's find out about his early days when he had a different name. It says Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Clay Jr. in 1942. So his original name, his birth name, was Cassius Clay Jr. He was known as Cassius Clay. And he was born a young man in 1942. And then it says when he was 12, his bike was stolen. Well, that's not nice. Who steals a little 12-year-old kid's bike? I guess it happens, but it happened to a young Cassius Clay, and I think it's safe to say he wasn't really happy about this.
No, he wasn't. We see in the article, Clay angrily told police officer Joe Martin that he wanted to beat up the thief.
There you go.
Of course, if the thief stole his bike. Who is a thief, though? Well, nobody wants to meet a thief, and that's because a thief is someone who takes things that doesn't belong to them. It's someone who steals things. So, for example, one time when I was in university, I was walking back from school to my house when someone came up to me and asked me for directions. I gave them the directions, I went home, and when I got home, I realized I didn't have my phone or my wallet. The person was a thief, and they had taken my phone and my wallet while I was talking to them.
Without you knowing at all?
Without me knowing,
Oh my gosh.
We could call this kind of a thief someone who takes things out of your pocket without you realizing. A pickpocket. That's one word, pickpocket. Someone who takes things out of your pocket. Let's look at an example sentence for thief now. A thief broke into my dad's car and stole his smartphone and briefcase.
And so this police officer was listening to this angry young Cassius Clay saying, I want to beat up that guy who stole my bike. And the police officer, Joe Martin, thought, well, maybe that's not the best thing to do with your time and energy. So Martin guided Clay to take up boxing and started training him. He kind of thought, well, take that energy and focus on a good sport like boxing. Then you can punch a bag instead of a thief and, get your anger out that way.
Keep you out of trouble.
Keep you out of of trouble, work your muscles, and who knows, maybe you'll be good at it too. If someone guides you the way this police officer guided young Cassius Clay, they're basically showing the way. They're leading you. They're kind of maybe possibly actually taking you by the hand and bringing you to a place, or showing you how to get to that place, or acting in some kind of leadership or leader role, right? Parents guide their kids, teachers guide their students.
Or tour guides.
Or tour guides guide people. You can do it in a real way, like tell someone how to go somewhere, or you can also do it by like setting an example or giving someone some good suggestions that are leading them to a solution to their problem. Whatever it is, where you're kind of leading someone to a place. For example, in a real way, the waiter guided us to our table. Please follow me.
Okay.
And to take up something, I should just mention this, to take up something is to basically begin doing something, to start something. If you're doing a new hobby or a pastime, oh, I've decided to take up the piano. I've decided to take up painting or something like that. It's an activity that you haven't done and you've decided to give it a try.
And just as we take something up, we can also give it up when we don't want to do it anymore.
I gave up violin after my neighbors started to complain about the noise. And so there you go. Cassius Clay was guided to the boxing gym. The police officer decided to train him, to kind of, work with him as a young athlete. And success. It says after just 6 years, Clay had already won several boxing titles. So he was a natural, you might say. By the time he was 18, he was probably the city champion or the state champion or something like that. He was really quite good at this.
He was very talented, and we see just how talented he was. He went on to win a gold medal in the 1960 Olympics. Wow, that's quite an achievement. He went on to win a gold medal. Let's first look at this phrase, go on, or went on. We use this phrase so we go on to do something. We use this phrase to talk about what we did next in life. And normally we use this when it's a very good thing. So, for example, though Jonathan failed to get into college, he went on to make lots of money as a successful business person. One thing happened, and then Jonathan went on to do something very, very positive. But Clay did something much better. He won a gold medal. Now, a medal is a kind of prize you get when you do very well in a race or competition. It's kind of like a big necklace with a big ribbon and a large penny-shaped metal thing that goes around your neck. So it kind of looks a bit like a necklace. We give out medals to people when they win races or competitions. If you come first, then you will get a gold medal, so a gold-colored medal. You'll get a silver medal if you come second, and you'll receive a bronze medal if you come third place. Okay, so in addition to medals, we can also win trophies as well. We don't give out trophies in the Olympics, but if you win some other sporting competitions, you might get a trophy. These are big cup-shaped prizes, which could also be gold or silver or bronze or some other color, that you also get for coming first, second, third in a competition. Let's look at an example sentence for medal now. The firefighter won a medal for saving 5 people from the fire.
I think that probably deserves a medal of some kind.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, there you go. So he won a gold medal at the 1960 Olympics in Rome. He was already quite well known at that time. And then it says Clay became known for his speed in the ring and for boasting before matches. Yes, he was well known for his boasts before matches. We mentioned this is what newspaper writers back in those days loved about him. He would always come up with a great quote. Like he said, for one competition against a boxer, Sonny Liston, he's too ugly to be world champ. The world champ should be pretty like me. That was a good comment, and probably made Sonny Liston not too happy about that. So when you boast, you sort of speak very proudly about yourself. You talk about how great you are, how wonderful you are. If you're a world champion of boxing, you can probably do that, and it's okay because, you're the world champion. If you're an average, normal person, be a little bit careful about boasting too much because people might think you just have a big head. But hey, if you're the world champ, you can have a big head. And yes, he was known for his speed. That's not necessarily with his feet, that's with his hands. His fists were very fast. He would punch you in the nose and you wouldn't even know what had happened.
Yes, he could punch you very, very quickly. So the article continues, before an important fight against boxing champion Sonny Liston, Clay teased him by saying he'd knock him out. Okay, so he wasn't just making fun of Sonny Liston's looks, it seems. No, he was also teasing them. Now, when we tease someone, we slightly annoy them, normally in a light-hearted way. So you might remember teasing your brothers and sisters when you were little. You know, you might have come in and made noise when they were trying to do their homework. You might have poked them a little bit with your fingers. That kind of thing. Just little annoying things that just kind of get them very frustrated. And importantly, you have a bit of fun doing it. So your parents might have told you, don't tease your brother or don't tease your sister. People can be very annoying, so we have lots of different words to talk about annoying people in English. If you pester someone, you can annoy them by repeating the same information or saying something to them over and over again about a particular subject. As in, Mum kept pestering me to clean my room, and eventually I did it. The verb to bug also has the same meaning. Let's look at an example sentence for tease now. Jeff and his brother are very close, but they also tease each other all the time. And we also had the word champion, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah, we've talked about Muhammad Ali being a champion boxer. If you're the champion at something, you're basically the best. Maybe the best in the world, in which case you would be the world champion.
Of course.
But you could also just be the school champion or, you know, the champion among your friends or whatever. But it basically means there's been a game, a contest, something like that. And someone who came out number one, who beat everyone else, they would be the champion. So we can all call a person a champion, but also, you know, you could call the NBA champions, right? The people who won the NBA contest for that year would be the world champions in the NBA. And Muhammad Ali definitely was the world champion by beating Sonny Liston, who I believe was the champion at that time. He was quite young, Cassius Clay, I should say, as he was known then. And so it was quite a surprise, but he won the match, as it says in our next sentence. Clay won the match. He beat Sonny Liston in the fight. So Clay won the match and famously shouted, "I am the greatest." Well, he was the champion. He was the greatest. It's a bit of a boast, but hey, he proved it. He did it.
But he wouldn't be known as Cassius Clay for much longer. The article says he made the news again the next morning by announcing that he had converted to Islam and was renamed as Muhammad Ali.
He was renamed as Muhammad Ali. I didn't know that was the next day.
That's he was
amazing.
Certainly going to be in the newspapers a lot at that time. Yes, he made the news. Make the news, this phrase. When we make the news, we do something so important that it gets mentioned in newspapers. So, for example, when Tsai Ing-wen became the first female president, she made the news. We could also say that she made the headlines. And when we make the headlines, we do something even more important so that we appear on the front page of a newspaper, or we could also appear on the front page of a website that shares news, because nowadays, most of us get our news online. Okay, so he made the news by becoming world champion and also by converting to Islam, which was probably not very common for American celebrities at the time. It still isn't now. He also did something, before we talk about him changing his name, we also need to talk about this verb convert. When we convert to a religion, we start believing in that religion and we become members of it. So Muhammad Ali converted to Islam. That means he wasn't a Muslim before, but he was one the day after he became world champion. We also saw that he changed his name. So we already know now that he was called Cassius Clay before and later became Muhammad Ali. So he officially, we could say, changed his name. I think if you looked at his passport after that day, it would have said Muhammad Ali, not Cassius Clay. Okay, well, that's all we have time for day one of our article. Let's check out our For You chat question, and then we'll continue looking at what Muhammad Ali did later in his life.
All right, so as we learned in our story, Cassius Clay Jr., he actually started boxing, this sport that made him world famous and very wealthy and all that other good stuff. But he actually started it after something bad had happened. Remember, his bike was stolen. He was so angry he was going to find the guy who stole it and punch him. And a police officer heard him saying things like that and said, well, why don't you just try boxing? Why don't you, take your energy out in the boxing gym instead of trying to find people to beat them up. So this is a good thing that happened after a negative or a bad life experience. Losing his bike or having it stolen led to him discovering boxing, which made him world famous. So here's our question. Has something good ever happened to you because of a bad experience?
Oh, well, I do have another theft story that I could share.
Oh my gosh, you're such a victim. Or wait, did you steal or were you the thief?
No, I have always been the victim.
Okay, you're always the victim. So the first time it was your cell phone and your wallet?
Yes.
Okay, what were you ripped off
this time around?
Yeah,
well,
what was stolen from you this other time?
This happened to me when I was quite young. I was about 9 years old, and we were on vacation in Spain, and we went to a museum, and while we were in the museum, some robbers came and they broke the windows of our car and stole everything inside.
You're kidding me.
I know. And
oh my gosh.
So worst of all for me was they stole my Game Boy Color. So I was very upset to lose my Game Boy Color. But something good did happen to me shortly after. I
found the thieves and got it back.
No, but I did get a Game Boy Advance, the newer Game Boy. So this isn't so much a story of personal growth. I did not become a world champion, but something good did happen that day.
Now, call me suspicious, but if I was a police officer, I might wonder if maybe you had broken into your own car to sort of, steal the thing so you might actually get the better Game Boy later on. Where were you at 4 p.m. on that day?
Did I ever go into that museum? Well, I'll let our listeners decide what really
been away
happened.
At the bathroom for half an hour and he came back covered in glass.
With a bloody hand.
With a bloody hand.
And no Game Boy.
Strange.
Okay, well, you guys, I'm sure you've had some stories of negative life experiences and good outcomes. So why don't you talk about those now, and we will join you tomorrow to learn more about the greatest Muhammad Ali. For English for You, I'm Seb.
And I'm Mike.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Take care.
The Greatest. The Story of Muhammad Ali. The words float like a butterfly, sting like a bee bring one name to mind, Muhammad Ali. This man gave boxing some of its best moments. However, Ali's life story shows he was much more than just a boxer. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Clay Jr. in 1942. When he was 12, his bike was stolen. Clay angrily told police officer Joe Martin that he wanted to beat up the thief. Martin guided Clay to take up boxing and started training him. After just 6 years, Clay had already won several boxing titles. He went on to win a gold medal in the 1960 Olympics. Clay became known for his speed in the ring and for boasting before matches. Before an important fight against boxing champion Sonny Liston, Clay teased him by saying he'd knock him out. Clay won the match and famously shouted, "I am the greatest!" He made the news again the next morning by announcing that he'd converted to Islam. He was renamed as Muhammad Ali.
Vocabulary Review. Float. When I let go of my balloon, it floated away into the sky. Thief. A thief broke into my house and took 10,000 NT dollars and a gold necklace. Guide. The teacher guided the students through the first homework problem together. Medal. Stephen won a gold medal for getting first place in the race. Champion. After we won 15 games in one season, my soccer team became the champions. Tease. After I tripped over a small stick, all my friends teased me about my balance.
智慧小补帖
Boxing. Boast. Convert.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net